Yeah, hey, I'm on a different Wi-Fi.
All right, it's cool. We've got it now. Yeah, we'll just yeah, like I was saying, I was asking you whether or not you want to leave us with anything before we open up for a Q&A. We have probably a handful of people here that want to ask you a question or two, but if there's anything that you can think of that you'd like us to leave, you'd like to leave us with, and feel free to.
No, I think we covered it, man. And again, man, no slavish concern for my words. If what I'm doing is useful, then I'll be doing more of it, and we should all put our money where our mouths are. So I don't know, or the other way around. Anyway, let's open up the question.
All right, awesome. All right, so here, go ahead. Just gonna ask him to the mic. Here it is.
Yeah, my first question, if you're a person starting out as either an anarchist or an agorist, what is the first thing that, as a newbie, what should you do to make the most difference? Where should you start out at?
Okay, so as I understand the question, it's what should you be doing to make the most difference, or the first best thing you can do?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wow. I'm still adjusting to this idea that what I say matters to the movement. So no, but I think it's a great question. I mean, I think of it myself too. So honestly, I think in practical terms, trying to do most of your economic activity, or as much of it as possible within Bitcoin, and then using that Bitcoin with people who accept Bitcoin is probably getting you the most bang for your buck. I mean, and eventually we'll change that term to bang for your Bitcoin, right? So. I really think that's a good practical way to do things. I just bought some plane tickets to South America the other day with Bitcoin at cheapair.com. I mean, keeping businesses that do critical things like that alive with this currency will promote this kind of world. And I don't mean to say things like, "Oh, you're a revolutionary if you just use Bitcoin," but I mean that seems to make some sense to me. So let's see if we're wrong.
One other question. In the event that the federal government does impose some kind of restriction or makes Bitcoin illegal, what do you think the best ways of working around that will be? I know you're working on a dark wallet. What do you see as the best ways around that?
Man, it really will depend upon how the law is written and how it's enforced and in what context. But we can, if we want to create certain event scenarios, I'm not sure I want to accept your hypothetical. I really don't think there will be an outright ban of a practice called Bitcoin. There will probably be something like a general self-censorship of the main arbiters of Bitcoin power and prestige and regulatory provenance, who kind of filter out all the features of Bitcoin that we like so much and replace it gradually with something they call Bitcoin but isn't. In that instance, we just end up creating something that is Bitcoin again and begin to use it. So I don't know, maybe this is a gradualist response, but basically toning the line and if that's, I don't know if that's the right cliche to use, but making sure that Bitcoin stays Bitcoin and doing everything we can to short circuit attempts at licensing business activity in Bitcoin, and doing full-scale auditing of firms of Bitcoin or creation of federal or state blockchains. This seems to be a way of stopping the scenario you suggested. Outside of that, I see nothing other than using the multi-jurisdictional approach, going to countries who see competitive advantage or comparative advantage in using Bitcoin as it is originally conceived. Countries like Denmark or even the Netherlands come to mind. You leaving the United States if you want to be a part of that Bitcoin wave.
Cool. Thanks.
So you launched Dark Wallet. Do you have anything to do with Darkcoin?
Do you have anything to do with Darkcoin?
Okay. Yeah. Wait. Okay, so is the question, did I have anything to do with Dark Wallet full stop?
No, I said you launched Dark Wallet or you're involved in Dark Wallet. Do you have anything to do with Darkcoin?
Oh, Darkcoin. Yeah, I keep getting asked this. No, I don't. And they keep sending nasty emails to Amir and me, and I think because there's a kind of general investment scheme happening right now, and a bunch of them are really threatening that they're going to lose some money or something.
Well, their blockchain forked.
Just look, use Darkcoin if you like Darkcoin, but I mean, in my understanding, it's a kind of over-cryptoed altcoin, which still like rests on a lot of people using it, and has the same, or like, let's say, greater monetization problems than even like the runners-up to Bitcoin. So in the end, I don't see it as a certain long-term solution, but it's an interesting supplement to Bitcoin if you'd like some privacy. Is it a valid technique? I think so, but then again, some of the people I trust, like Crystal Atlas and others, tell me that it's not cryptographically secure. That's outside of my expertise, and I'm not trying to just kind of besmirch the technology. At least with what we were doing with Dark Wallet, we were trying to give you a way, granted not a fully decentralized way, a kind of federalized way of really practicing safer Bitcoin.
Yes. Got another question coming up.
Thank you. Following your stuff for a little bit here, and I have two questions. One, what's the status of things like the State Department's temporary ban on the technology, 3D printed guns and prints? And then two, what's the plans for Defense Distributed as far as, where is the AR frames projects and the magazines, where's the technological status of that? So legal and
Okay, yeah, I'm glad you asked. Okay, well, the State Department thing has actually not moved very much since May of last year. And basically, I can give you the problem, and then actually I have a kind of an update, which might be good, but the problem is that the State Department has this Cold War statutory authority that it has to deal with, where, during the Cold War, the United States basically gave itself monopoly powers to control the spread of all data, information, and hardware related to any armament. And armament is regarded as anything, defined as anything that fires an explosive projectile, and even doesn't in some cases. So, and this applies to defense services, defense articles. It's this extremely huge and broad structure of regulatory authority, and they decided to kind of, and you could say capriciously, enforce it on what we were doing. Now, those police powers are very, very, let's say, they suffer from a lot of constitutional problems, and the authorities of the State Department know that. They suffer from first and now, since 2008, probably Second Amendment problems. And we've called them on that, we've checked them on that, and they're proceeding very, very carefully to develop policy for what they're going to do going forward. Now, the State Department has a non-disclosed policy on what our activity was and what they think of it, but this has become so politically charged because of, I think, how big the media response to Liberator and Defense Distributed was, that there's a certain National Security Council, which has now been convened, to just decide what the entire administrative policy with regards to these files and these activities should be going forward. It's huge. They've got Department of Defense, Department of Commerce, Department of State, NASA, and Justice involved, Homeland Security. Can you still see me?
Yep. Yep.
Oh crap, can you still see me?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, well my video froze, but okay, great. So anyway, I don't mean to over-answer, but that's where it is. It's been escalated up to this super committee, and we know how super committees work at the federal level. So, and I'm happy to let it stay there because I don't want to go to jail. So, also, like, I've got a big team of lawyers now, and I've been able to capitalize and respond to that. But now to kind of answer your question about the future of Defense Distributed, we've prepared all of our arguments for most of the eventualities for the results of this committee and this process, and really at any point I can demand that they give me an answer and we can kind of initiate the legal challenges if we want to do that. But I've actually been waiting on another division of the administration to kind of help me out. I applied almost 2 years ago to the IRS for tax exemption as a nonprofit organization with a somewhat interesting legal argument. And crazy that I just found out like a couple of days ago, I think the IRS is about to approve Defense Distributed as a tax-exempt charity. That's for you guys in the room there. I haven't told anybody that. So, I plan to have something kind of just awful and cynical to celebrate, when that happens. But, I think that evidentiarily speaking, that's really interesting that one half of the administration would like to destroy me and the other half would like to subsidize me. There's something really demonstrably useful there. That's how arcane and Byzantine our bureaucratic systems are, right? Like one of them's like, no, we love you. Anyway, so Defense Distributed is in a really interesting place, and this is about 3D printed guns. Specifically, this app was related to that. So I've got 2 gun projects in the works right now. One is related to fabrication of AR-15 frames. and you should hear about it soon. I don't want to like leak any more than that. It's different. It's other. It's alternative to what we were doing before. Different in application and different in method. And I presented it in an attractive way, which also kind of begins to attack the way people are talking about background checks and everything again for 2014, 2016. So whatever. Don't take my word for it. If it's good, you'll know about it. And then we have a new set of machines and software that have come in to do 3D printing of the stuff we've done before and more in more complex materials, better stuff with better people. Defense Distributors made a couple new hires, so I'm really interested in getting back to gun work and showing you our work. We have means of putting our files into the public domain to break the state blockade and to break it legally. I just want to have something really interesting to do because it's going to cost me a few $1,000s every time I want to put one of these pieces into the public domain now, at least with the current lay of the land. I hope that answers your question. Defense Distributors, a gun company, 2014, 2015 look really good. All right, thanks.
Hey, did someone ask him if he's a Bitcoin purist or is he dabbling in the altcoin market?
Okay, Joel, can you give me that first part? Is he just saying, do I recommend Bitcoin purely, or give me the first part?
What was it again?
Is he a Bitcoin purist or does he think there's room for competition in the alt currency marketplace?
Okay, are you a Bitcoin purist, or do you think there's room for competition in the alt currency marketplace?
Right, I heard it. Well, why shouldn't we allow competition in the altcoin space? I mean, it's not a problem for me, and I love things like Dogecoin. I mean, Daniel Kravitz is like, has persuaded me on one of these fronts that for network effects and certain kind of boring academic reasons, Bitcoin will win, and what are you doing messing around with anything else? And he's probably right, but I mean, in the interim, like with the question about Darkcoin before, perhaps your coin zigs where Bitcoin doesn't, where Bitcoin zags, and maybe you can achieve some kind of marginal advantage for yourself in the short term by switching in and out of these coins. I see a certain strategic interest, at least in confusing regulatory authorities or something else, doing your own kind of arcane planning. So I say how great that there's a world of altcoins, especially Dogecoin. And maybe I'll speak on things like Bitcoin 2.0 projects, these great albatross projects, these spruce goose projects like Ethereum and Mastercoin. Look, do we think they're going anywhere? No, I mean, even the people working on them don't think they're going anywhere. But it's like, perhaps it's useful experimentation, or to take an Agris approach, it's a better use of some capitalist money than whatever Palantir project he would have supported with it otherwise. So, I mean, I don't know. That's my best answer.
Cool, we got another one.
Hey, so we started a Dogecoin meetup. We've had 2 meetups. We're looking where to go to from here, how to drive the community farther. Like, it is like an evolution, it may not be a successful coin, but it helps drive the whole system. It's Bitcoin's marketing campaign.
I think by tone, I understood the question, but Joel, you'll have to just
It sounded more like just a comment to me. Maybe I
any suggestions on cool Dogecoin ideas, or
any suggestion with cool Dogecoin ideas? If you feel anything about Dogecoin, did you get that? Dogecoin.
Man, just put it to me I can't hear it. I can't hear it.
Okay, and more direct, maybe ask something a little more directly about Dogecoin.
Driving forward Dogecoin is already ideas that he has to make it better, I guess.
Okay.
But how to promote cryptocurrency in general, the Doge is really good for promoting the idea, so maybe he has some comment or idea of, just how to get people on board more, just in general.
Convert more people to cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, just I guess the idea is sort of how do we convert more people to adapting cryptocurrencies, and specifically Dogecoin maybe.
I feel like obviously a lot was lost in translation there. If the question is how do we get more people to adopt cryptocurrencies, how do we have better marketing? Is that the question?
Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, look, for the answer to that question for me is not what it is for most people, which is like, oh, I want to give you the altcoin catastrophe. I mean, I've been working on this ABC primetime piece on dark wallet and the dark side of Bitcoin for forever, and that's just going to give people a shit fit when that thing hits on TV. And for me, that's the best form of marketing, you know, but it doesn't actually answer that question in the way that maybe the questioner wanted it. You know, how do we really encourage people to adopt it? Man, I don't know. In fact, I don't know if that's my talent. My talent is perhaps, if anything, just kind of ruining technologies before they have market definition.
Nice. Well, all right. Unless anyone else has any questions, I think we're gonna let you. Well, sure. Time for a hand clap now. Before we let you go. Okay, we got one more question on that, and then we'll cut this. Hang on 1 second.
Hey Cody, this is Harlan from the bookstore. Hey man, so you operate in sort of the realm of symbolism and symbols, and I wanted to get your take on what you think. I mean, Ross Ulbricht in a way is symbolic, and I think if it, you know, even the idea of somebody being a rallying cry for the black market or for this sort of agorist ecosystem, I think it's something that they were aware of initially, and I think that's why they sort of wanted to paint Ross in this really sort of devilish light with these murder for hire plots early on when he was arrested. And I'm just wondering, like, do you think that if we can really get the message out about the real story of who this young man is, that he could become a rallying cry for what's, you know, for what the state does to people, first of all, for how it can sort of convict you in the court of public opinion, and also how we can, you know, use it as a way to challenge state power and unite people and see that there are ways to challenge the state, like agorists sort of talk about, that, you know, outside of any parliamentary sort of action, that Drug Pirate Roberts and the Silk Road is a direct action that symbolizes that sort of, you know, that idea. What is your thoughts on sort of, you know, raising awareness about that idea and unifying around that idea?
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay. All right. I think I got it. It seems that maybe my Wi-Fi is skipping, so I apologize if my answer is skipping as well. But basically, I guess there's two or three things that we've all seen now, and how the story of Ross unfolded. And, you know, round 1, 2, and 3 went to the state and went to the prosecutorial authorities, the juridical authorities, and the media working in concert to paint this guy as what you would expect of a kind of kingpin villain running the underworld, some disaffected marginal, you know, that was keeping, you know, drugs on the street and your kids unsafe and everything. And it's nobody's fault, but there was no way of immediately countering that narrative, which was so good and so concerted. Oh man, murder for hire. I mean, they set the case up very well. And then it didn't help that, and I and other people have chided the movement for this too, but like, it didn't help that every libertarian got caught with their pants down and didn't have a good response for defending the guy, because murder, as one of these ethical universals, just left them with cotton mouth. You know, well, there's certain things, there's certain lines we can't cross. I mean, look, there are adult ways of talking about this, even if the guy was guilty of murder, but of course we found out that he wasn't, or at least wasn't formally charged with it, and then we saw how like what happened to him, the fact pattern about his murder for hire charges was so much like how these FBI agents and others in the IC end up getting with would-be terrorists and kind of helping them go through a simulation of a terrorist scenario just to set them up. And that's even an intermediate case. It's clear to me that like a lot of these things were just kind of dropped on us just to salt his charges and again get everybody in the movement to just scatter from him. And that worked. So the answer to your question about, well, how do we end up telling the story better? How do we end up using him as a symbol? You can see some of that is beginning to happen at the very local level. People are now beginning to give esteem to Dread Pirate Roberts. again, the state has to show me that this is Ross Ulbricht. I've looked at the evidence. I've looked at the documents. Not a slam dunk case to me. So again, I don't want to be saying Ross Ulbricht's the guy if we're praising the wrong guy. But let's say that, like, if he's the guy, or whoever Dread Pirate Roberts is, at this point it's going to be the long.
No.
Oh, I saw my face freeze.
You're good. You're good now. You froze.
We've got to have people doing good documentary work and showing, in hindsight, look at what they did to him. Look at how they destroyed him, and look at how otherwise he should have been regarded as a symbol of freedom, a symbol of direct action, autonomously led communities. Tying it into this problem that we have with the drug war. I mean, we see the silent majorities in the drug war totally supporting, basically. Man, I hate to play this game, but I mean, you see how we can tie these two things together and be like, well, it's awful that in the in the DEA and FBI's kind of dark days on the drug war, they just have to end up creating straw men out of otherwise brilliant individuals who are just enough ahead of the curve that they were dangerous. If he was just a bit back further in the curve, he would have been hailed as an innovator, a social innovator, lavish with money, but no, he was a bit too much innovative and promoted too much freedom. So these are the stories that have to be told, and I mean culturally, and I think we'll get there because the culture favors these stories, but we're going to have
Revolution.
I'm sorry.
You're gonna have to have. That's what we heard. Or we're gonna have to have. And that's the last thing we heard.
I'm just saying, we're going to have these stories told about him. This is in a cage, right?
Yeah. That's our job.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for that answer. Yeah, hey, before we let you go, where can we follow you? Where can we stay updated with what you're doing next?
I don't tell anybody what I'm doing. I'm on Twitter, man. Just Google me, you'll find me. I got a website, so check it out.
Alright, we're gonna check out your website on Twitter. Alright. Oh yeah, man, thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, man. We'll have to have you on again in the future. Well, that's it. Thanks a lot, guys, for hanging out.
Bye.
And, oh, you know what?